Silent treatment. Ignoring text messages. Part 1. During your seduction, if we were not bombarding you with those delicious text messages, complimenting you, inviting you out and describing what we would like to do to you in bed that night, then, when you answered us, you would invariably receive a lightning-quick response. This is all part of the assertion of control over you in a benign way, and creating in you a conditioned response, so that you become accustomed to us replying to you very quickly. Even if we were driving, we managed to rattle off a reply. During a meeting, there would be a surreptitious response texted from underneath the desk or boardroom table. And what about those late-night messages which made you smile and think about us? Yes, we were ensconced in our bolt hole, be it the study or a silent trip to the bathroom, or we even lay in bed texting you, as the outgoing primary source slept beside us, oblivious to what was going on. Heady and exciting times indeed. The necessity of bringing you under control meant that you were afforded repeated text messages, that we replied to yours, and that we did so quickly, because we needed to bring you under control, and to do so quickly. You were afforded this treatment because you were painted white, and therefore our narcissism determined that it was an appropriate way of behaving to message you a lot and reply to you almost instantaneously. All of that has now changed. You send a text and there is no response. You send another, no answer. You issue another text, still no reply. You know of no reason why we cannot respond. In fact, you checked beforehand that we would actually be available this morning, and we confirmed that we would be. We used to answer at any time. Your initial pleasant inquiries soon take on the tone of concern, irritation, hurt, and then anger, as every time you send a text message, there is then no response from us. Why is this happening? There are a number of factors involved in our behaviour when we are not answering your text messages, and this includes what type of appliance you are in the fuel matrix, the stage that you are in the narcissistic dynamic, and of course the school of narcissists that you are dealing with. Let us begin with the situation that occurs between the intimate partner primary source, the IPPS, and the narcissist. When the IPPS is in seduction, it is extremely rare for us to not answer your text messages. This is when you've been newly embedded and you are still within the golden period with us. As I mentioned earlier, we will respond at any time, any place, and anywhere, and we will be looking to text you and respond to your messages as part of the love-bombing seduction that occurs and the embedding. It is worth pointing out that this period is not the initial stages of the seduction. Of course, you'll be an intimate partner secondary source at that stage, or possibly even a non-intimate secondary source. But rather, as the seduction has progressed and we have embedded you as the primary source, we continue that embedding and binding as part of the golden period. We continue to want to receive your glorious positive fuel, and our phone will always be about our person, and we respond in a loving, caring, interesting, fun, and attentive manner. If we do not reply during seduction, it is probably because we are grappling an alligator and really cannot reach the phone, or we have been kidnapped and our hands and feet are tied and our head restrained so that we cannot even prod the phone with our noses. Yes, it needs to be that extreme to stop us from answering during seduction. During seduction, you will always receive a lot of texts, and we will forewarn you, as explained in the manner of the prior warning silent treatment, that we will not be available, and we will explain why, and we will tell you when we will become available. We want to keep you under control and to avoid you being concerned that we are not around. So when it gets to a point whereby you don't hear from us during seduction, it is the case that we are not in a position genuinely to reply to you. Devaluation. This is where it all changes. This is where the failure to reply to you is deliberately imposed by our narcissism in order to assert control over you and gain fuel. With the lesser and mid-range narcissists, it is an instinctive response, and with the greater and the ultra, it is deliberate and calculated, in a conscious manner. The lesser or mid-range narcissists are allowed by the narcissism to think that the lack of response is justified, for instance, because you are irritating, needy, smothering, or that we are busy with something else and can't reply right now, and we should not be disturbed. The lesser and mid-range narcissists are unaware that the actual reason they are not replying is to assert control over you, and in some instances to draw fuel from you. The greater and the ultra know the actual reason why we are doing this. We know that we're doing it to control you. We know that we're doing it to get fuel from you, and we revel in doing so. We are consciously aware of this deliberate response. The narcissist, of course, invariably knows that you are messaging us because we are rarely without our phone. It is the mission control of our operations. If we read your messages, we naturally gain a small amount of fuel from what you have written, and by not responding, we are then asserting control through the third assertion of control. We may have our phone in our pocket, and the repeated buzz as you message us is felt by us. We may look once to confirm that it is you trying to get in touch with us, and then we deposit the phone away, without reading or even replying. This is most likely because we are busy engaging with somebody else, most likely seducing someone else, busy gaining fuel from another appliance. It doesn't necessarily have to be somebody we are trying to bed or recruit to become the new primary source. It may just be, for example, our inner circle secondary source friends who we're drinking with, and thus we are triangulating you with them. They don't know that you're messaging, but we do. Accordingly, we gain fuel from the proximity of our inner circle friends, whilst the repeated vibration of the phone gives us thought fuel, as we envisage you becoming more and more frustrated with our failure to answer you. Again, we do not answer, and do not even read the message, which means that we are asserting control over you by ignoring you through the third assertion of control and focusing on whoever it is that we're dealing with, namely other secondary sources. Alternatively, our phone will be on display. We might be on our own, watching a film, wanting to stay away from you, as we had executed a silent treatment, and we remain in that position. Alternatively, we may be with other people. Those other people could be inner or outer circle friends. It might be an intimate partner secondary source that we are busy seducing, of the shelf variety or a dirty little secret. We have the phone on display so that we can see that it is you who is messaging us, and we can see all or part of your messages. This enables us to, of course, gain some fuel from your messages by seeing the emotional content of what you've written as you plead with us, insult us, exhibit hurt or concern. If we are on our own and we are giving you a silent treatment from some bolt hole, we receive further fuel from you and feel our power reinforced and continue to ignore you by not responding to the messages, thus asserting control over you through the application of the third assertion of control. If we are, however, with other people, they invariably see that your name keeps flashing up, and they might even be able to see part of the message. We're also triangulating here. We need to assert control over you and over the other party or parties. This provides us with an opportunity to gain extra fuel from the reactions of those who are with us, if the people indicate in some way that they have seen the receipt of the message, or they pass comment upon it. If they do so, we may reply in the following ways. See what I mean about her trying to spoil my nights out with you guys? She is such a control freak. In this instance, you're ignored, which allows us to assert control over you, and we smear you to our friends. And when they agree with us, we gain fuel from them, assert control over them directly, and again assert control over you indirectly by way of the smearing. Remember, those assertions of control are from our perspective. We may say things such as, "What can I say, chaps? She's just totally obsessed with me, but who can blame her?" Or, "Who's Rachel? Oh, that's some obsessive ex. Don't worry about her. She does this all the time. I don't block her because then she'd start stalking me in person again. It's easier to let the phone take the strain." "Who's Emma? This is the nut job I'm trying to finish with, and as you can see, she just won't let go." Anybody. Anyway, I don't want to talk about her. Tell me more about what you've been doing today, and let me get you another drink. "Who's Joanne? I dated her a couple of times. As you can tell, she's rather keen on me by how often she is messaging me." In some instances, you're smeared. In other instances, we triangulate the new appliance with you, causing them to be subjected to our control. By letting them know that there's somebody else on the docket, that we're involved with somebody else, and they're going to have to try hard to gain our favour and affection. Accordingly, this triangulation will enable us to gain fuel and control over the third party, or, where it's smearing, we gain fuel and control from them whilst indirectly controlling you. This is also done to encourage the prospective replacement that we may well be seducing to work harder to gain our attention. All of the above examples allow us to assert control over the third parties and over you. You receive a silent treatment as a consequence of our failure to respond. We gain fuel from seeing your messages. And if we are triangulating, we will gain fuel from the other appliance or appliances that we are with. It is all calculated when committed by the greater or the ultra, and is instinctive for all of the schools of narcissist. There may be occasions where we will purposefully read the messages but don't reply, and we know that you know that we've read the message. This is done, of course, to derive fuel from them, but it's also carried out so that we know that you know that we've read the message, and that will annoy you, irritate you, hurt you further. We can envisage you, therefore, getting more and more worked up as you know that we are reading, but clearly not replying. This provides further fuel for us, and allows our devaluation of you to be made loud and clear to you, as well as, of course, asserting control over you. In this instance, we are gaining both proximate fuel from you, the content of your message, and thought fuel from envisaging your response to our failure to reply, even though we have clearly read the message. When we do eventually reply, be it hours or days later, it is done to gather more fuel from you and again to assert control over you. It is not because we feel bad, it is not because we think, well, better get in touch so as to ensure that she's not angry with me. It is done for our purposes. Those two elements are the prime aims. When we do get in touch, invariably your response may well be of relief and delight that we finally got in touch, and therefore we receive a blast of positive fuel from you, and you also signal that you are under control. If it is hurt or anger, then we receive negative fuel instead. We often don't give you any explanation as to why we have not responded, deeming you not worthy of one. Our sense of entitlement, lack of emotional empathy, and lack of accountability. Alternatively, our explanation will be framed around the nature of your response. If, for instance, you are giving us positive fuel, we will then trot out some excuse about not being able to use the phone was broken, and other excuses, therefore responding in a benign way, but of course blame-shifting by putting the failure on our ability to return or reply on something else. Some of these explanations may sound plausible, and even if they do not, you're likely to be too relieved and delighted that we're back in touch to make an issue about it, which of course our narcissism relies on. Don't accept those explanations. They're all lies. They are said to avoid accountability, and the reality is that the failure to respond was completely deliberate, either unconsciously, lesser or mid-range, or consciously, greater or ultra. If you are giving us negative fuel, then we will blame you for the reason we did not respond, in order to provoke you further and gain yet more negative fuel, saying that we needed some space, that you never leave us alone, that you are always trying to control us and such like. Note once again the use of the words never and always, representative of our black and white thinking. So, Which narcissists fail to reply to the text messages? Well, all narcissists will use this form of manipulation. The lesser is most likely to ignore you completely. He will have gained fuel from the institution of the silent treatment and your frantic response to get in touch with us. Although the silent treatment is not one of the favoured methods of manipulation of the lesser, the middle lesser is the one who uses it the most. Instead, the failure to respond is more representative of the compartmentalization that narcissists engage in. The lesser has closed the door on you for the time being as he focuses on dealing with somebody else. He doesn't want your interruption. Given his lower cognitive function and lower energy levels, he is less likely to juggle two people in the instant, and therefore, basically, it's all he can do to focus on the person that he's dealing with, and he can't handle any distractions from you because they'll threaten his control. So he ignores you and asserts control, and that allows him to focus on who he's dealing with. The mid-ranger's favourite method of manipulation is the silent treatment, and therefore he or she will make repeated use of not answering text in order to control you, make you feel inferior, assert their perceived superiority in this passive-aggressive manner, and, of course, to gain fuel. The mid-ranger is most likely to keep the phone in his or her pocket as they seek to seduce a prospective primary source, savouring the vibrations and taking the occasional glance when the target has gone to the bar or to the bathroom to drink up that fuel from you. He or she will have the phone on display when he or she is alone, delighting in reading your messages, and will also make use of allowing you to know that he or she has read the message and still has not replied. Where the lower mid-range, middle mid-range type A or middle mid-range type B narcissist is involved, he or she is less likely to be so brazen as to have the phone on display so others can comment on it, as their narcissism will be wary of damaging control over the other parties. The upper mid-range narcissism is less concerned by such a risk. The haughty, arrogant upper mid-ranger is less concerned that control will be affected. The greater narcissist will revel in having the phone in a prominent position, lighting up and beeping, glancing at it and ensuring that if he is with other people, then they will see that he's in demand, and it allows him to engage in triangulation. It appeals to the huge sense of superiority and string pulling that the graters will demonstrate that someone is trying to get in contact with them, and that they can brush it off, dismiss it, and explain it away as they rope somebody else in, and that individual who we are talking to accepts what the greater is being told without question, allowing the greater to note that the charm and manipulative guile remain at the top of the game. The ultra will even share information with the third party about what is on the phone, entirely confident that this will not threaten the control over the third party, but rather allow that control to be increased by making the appliance that is being seduced feel as if they are a confidant to the ultra's world, being allowed to know that the devalued IPPS is aggressive or needy or annoying and clingy, to invite this appliance to prove that they are not those things and thus distinguish themselves, to demonstrate that they are worthy to be continue to drawn into the world of the ultra. They then try harder in the full knowledge of what the ultra is doing. They are neither discouraged or dissuaded. If your text messages are not being answered, you are being manipulated. The narcissist is doing so to assert control over you and may well be doing it in tandem with asserting control over others. Where the narcissist fails to respond to your text message, your emotional thinking, of course, rises because you're interacting with the narcissist, and your truth seeker trait causes you to want to understand why you're not getting a response. You also cannot understand how there has been this shift from the repeated texts that were provided to you in the golden period, and now how that has altered. It doesn't make sense. Of course, it does not make sense to you from your perspective. It makes perfect sense from ours, because now you do not deserve the close, attentive responses that we once provided, and instead it is entirely appropriate, because in our world you are now painted black, that you are ignored. You need to understand that the repeated texting is only going to challenge the narcissist's control, and therefore it will not make him respond. Most of the time, if the narcissist does respond, then that is to assert control over you directly, but this video is concerned with explaining the instances where we choose, either consciously or unconsciously, not to reply to you. Where this happens, the best thing that you can do is stop texting, stop providing fuel, stop threatening the narcissist's control, and eventually the narcissist, at some point when there is a Hoover trigger and the Hoover execution criteria have been met, will reply to you. Or, more likely, since you are the position of the intimate partner primary source, the narcissist will return home and see you in person. These are the reasons why the narcissist fails to reply to your text messages when you are the intimate partner primary source. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.